Joining the military is considered to be one of the best ways to show love for your country. And that applies to pretty much any country around the globe. There's nothing more patriotic than fighting for the freedom of the place that you're from. What does it take to be a part of it? Well, it definitely takes a lot of physical and mental strength, and to develop certain skills, you need to go through a very strict and demanding routine that will transform you from a pasty person to a very strong person. In today's video, we'll be looking at 20 of the most insane military exercises. Our first entry is aptly titled, Surviving. Apparently, if you want to join the Navy, you're going to be asked to survive 12 hours inside a sinking ship. According to people who have gone through that, this is one of the scariest forms of training. It's just a simulation, and I'm sure you'd get help if you struggle, am I right? But still, surviving inside a sinking ship doesn't sound fun at all. Our next entry is Headstrong. Headstrong. This is quite literal. In China, people develop their strength by smashing bricks with their heads. If breaking rocks with their bare hands was already impressive enough, using their head to do that is simply insane. But I guess it's what you do when you want to prove that you have what it takes to defend your nation. Our next entry is Stress Management. Learning to stay calm during a stressful situation is a key part of military training. That's why people in the Chinese army are required to lean forward and stay floating in the air like this while their companions hold their ankles. They stay like this for about an hour and they're not supposed to move. If they do manage to remain calm and motionless, then it means they've learned to control their emotions during stress. Our next entry is Pain Management. The Spetsnaz, which are the special forces in Russia, go through a very exhausting process that includes training focused on pain management. And we know that thanks to Viktor Suvorov, who wrote about it in his book about his time in the Spetsnaz. He says that this pain management training puts soldiers through a series of workouts in which they take full-force punches in their chest and burning cinder blocks that are broken over their bellies with a hammer. Sounds painful, but it is part of the process to become part of the Russian forces. Our next entry is Surviving the Cold. The members of the South Korean Army develop their physical strength through a bunch of activities. This includes breaking bricks with their bare hands, but that's not all. They also learn to strengthen their mind by walking shirtless through extreme cold weather conditions. On top of all that, they're also required to cover themselves with snow just to strengthen their minds through a situation that would be impossible to survive for many of us. Our next entry is North Korean Loyalty. On the other end of Korea, we have North Korea, which is a secretive country, but there are a few things that we actually know about them, and one of those is that they put their special forces through a very painful training regimen. We know that thanks to a man who was the bodyguard of Kim Jong-il. He said that their training includes getting hit in the stomach with a hammer, smashing their heads with tiles, and plenty of painful moments that are meant to encourage loyalty to their nation and their leaders. Our next entry is Bridge Pose. When I think of the bridge pose, I think of a peaceful and calming yoga class that is meant to improve my strength and flexibility. And if I mess up, I can always try again until I get it right. And if an instructor is guiding me, I'm sure the instructor will be kind enough to help me out. Now, when it comes to the Iraqi army, breaking out of your pose could get you hurt. When you join their army, you can forget about messing up to get second chances. With them, if you mess up, it means that you'll get hit with the back of an AK-47. So you better do your exercises right if you don't want to get hurt. Our next entry is Dirty Water. You might not hear a lot about snipers, and that's great because that's actually their job, to stay hidden from their adversaries. For that reason, they need to learn some of the strangest techniques to stay out of the radar. They need to use camouflage, and the way to learn to hide is quite odd. They put on their suits and wash in a pool full of smelly plants and dirty water. And they have to do exercises in that pool and repeat the process multiple times a month. Our next entry is Rescue Mission. Israel is often threatened by terrorist attacks. That's why their special forces must be ready to respond to this type of emergency. The way they prepare for that is by rappelling down tall towers and simulating the rescue of hostages inside buildings just to see if they could perform these acts in real life. If they succeed in this exercise, then it means they're ready for real-life threats. Our next entry is Bananas on Your Head. Not all the exercises have to be physically painful or exhausting. There's one invented by the Philippine Army that's pretty funny, but it also has odd consequences. It involves balancing a banana on your head while you eat your food. This exercise is supposed to improve your posture and your balance. Just think about it. Would you be able to watch all my videos while balancing a banana on top of your head? It'd be quite difficult, and we honestly would have no way to know if you would succeed. But in the Army, well, everybody would know. If it falls, though, the soldiers are required to eat the banana, including the skin. Our next entry is Cobra Blood. The Cobra Gold is an annual event of exercises held in Thailand. They welcome people from the U.S., Indonesia, Singapore, Japan, and South Korea. During the 11-day event, the 13,000 participants take part in many events, and one of them involves drinking the blood of a deadly cobra after they learn how to kill it. It's said that this liquid is full of nutrients that can help soldiers survive if they ever run out of food or energy. Our next entry is circus-inspired. Have you ever been to the circus and wondered what it'd be like to perform some of those stunts? Well, you can either join the circus to find out, or you can also join the Chinese army. During their training, they're required to jump through fire rings. You could easily think that they're preparing for a performance, but they're actually preparing for real-life events. Throughout history, it's become evident that fire is constantly present on the battlefield. Sure looks like a lot of fun, but it's not that fun when you realize that you're putting your own life in danger. Our next entry is Next Level Balance. And here's another exercise that'll remind us of the circus. When you look at it, you might think of tightrope walkers, but their routines look nothing like what I'm about to show you. To become a Red Beret in Belarus, you'll be required to go through an intense obstacle course that includes keeping your balance while running on a pole and getting shot at by one of your leaders. This is in addition to moving through a field full of burning tires and staying focused while your superiors throw stuff at you. Our next entry is chest shots. This is perhaps one of the most challenging exercises that any person could actually go through. It's part of the Russian Confidence Training Course, and it requires you to get shot in the chest by other soldiers. You could either get hurt, or you could be one of the lucky ones with a bullet stuck in their vest. But it doesn't matter what happens, you're required to respond with another precise shot to prove that no bullet can stop you. Our next entry is cold water. The Navy SEAL training process includes something called cold water conditioning, and it requires the trainees to get covered in mud and then their arms and legs get bound before they're put underwater. They have to go up and down 20 times. Then they have to float for about 5 minutes, and then they just swim to the shallow part of the pool without touching the bottom. And if that wasn't enough, they have to find a face mask while they're underwater, and one of their instructors could show up and attack them just to show them what it's like to fight while drowning. Our next entry is dirty push-ups. If military training sounds hard, imagine doing it all while covered in sludge. It sounds impossible, but that's what the British Royal Marines have to do if they want to become Green Berets. Green Berets, by the way, are the most prestigious members of the combat troops. They are required to do push-ups and crawl through the mud with outfits that offer little to no protection. They end up dirty, smelly, and exhausted, but they don't mind doing it as long as they get to improve their status within the ranks of their army. Our next entry is Robin Sage. Once the U.S. Army Special Forces candidates are ready to complete their training, they're taken to North Carolina, where they spend an entire month in a huge scenario that recreates what it's like to fight through political unrest and armed warfare. The trainees have to solve realistic problems such as coup plots and torture in order to prove that they're ready to become Green Berets. Our next entry is yoga training. Not everything is about fire, blood, and exhaustive exercises. Just look at the Indian military forces. They practice yoga to counter their stress and maintain a healthy mindset. It's been said that yoga helps them relax and escape the stress of living in the same space for a long period of time. And I listed it today because, well, this is insane considering it's the military. You don't often hear about the Army practicing peaceful things like yoga. Most of the times it's running courses and also cursing a lot. I wonder what the world would be like if there were more military forces doing this type of practice. Probably the same. Now it's time for the day's best thing. Before we finish the video, here are 2 more exercises that you need to know about. One of them is represented in the picture that I chose for the day, but can you guess where it's from? Well, with that said, Road to Heaven. After 9 weeks of intensive training, the Taiwanese soldiers are required to go through something called a Road to Heaven, which is physically and mentally demanding. They're required to crawl through a long path made of corals and boulders. The recruits have to be careful as the coral and the boulders are all sharp and can cut through their skin. And the worst thing about it is that the soldiers have to do this after being awake for 4 days straight. So crawling through this awful path marks the completion of the training. Granted, it's a 164-foot crawl, but still, hey, completion. If they can do this, they can do anything. Before we move on, do me a favor. My analytics show that only about 15% of you watching are actually subscribed. Come on guys, what's up with that? Can you guys please hit the subscribe button? You guys watch my videos every day anyway, so you might as well subscribe and keep up to date with every video we put out. Our final entry is hot potato. At the top of the list, we have one of the scariest forms of training. It might remind you of a game you played when you were little, but this thing is not a game. It's real life. It is the grown-up version of hot potato, and it's practiced by the Chinese military. What they do is that they make a circle and pass around a hand grenade and hold a pin. The game has to last until the grenade is about to blow up, and when that happens, the unlucky soldier who's holding it has to toss it into a hole and run for cover. It sounds intense, but this is part of their regular training. Now, are you ready to join the military? Which of these exercises is the most insane? Let us know in the comment section down below. And again, if you're already part of the military forces in your country, please let us know what training looks like. With all that said and done, that's our video for today, folks, and I will see you all next time. Later, everybody.